ICE-deported man, exiled with a secret. Carlton Smith sat slumped in the faded vinyl chair of JFK's Terminal 4, staring at Gate 32 like it held the power to reverse time. His hands trembled, not from fear of flying, but from the weight of everything he was leaving behind. 20 years of life in America, gone. Not by choice, but by force. ICE called it justice. Carlton called it heartbreak. He wasn't a criminal, not really. One mistake, 10 years ago, driving home drunk from a party, swerving to avoid a deer on the Palisades Parkway, a dented guardrail, a busted tire, and flashing red and blues that led to handcuffs and a DUI. He did his time, 60 days in jail, 3 years probation, and not a drop of alcohol since. But that record, buried in the system like a dormant landmine, was what detonated his deportation. No one cared about the good he'd done since then. No one cared that he'd worked double shifts as a security guard to pay bills and support his estranged girlfriend Janice and their son. No one cared that he volunteered at church or that the only high he chased now was a better future. No one cared he was a taxpayer contributing to the economy. Now, all he had were memories, regrets, and a one-way ticket back to Jamaica. But even that wasn't what weighed on him most. It was his laptop and thumb drive. 7 years ago, his friend James, white guy from the Bronx, early 40s, Bitcoin evangelist, called him Rasta Carl at meetups, told him to buy some Bitcoin. Carlton shrugged and bought 6 over a period of 2 years. It was like a savings account to him. Now those 6 were worth over $500,000, $530,000 to be exact. All of it stored on a thumb drive locked away in a shoebox in his bedroom. His bedroom, that is now Janice, was actively looking to rent out after ICE detained him. She didn't know about the drive or the laptop that held the digital keys. She didn't know, but that could change. Carlton's stomach twisted. Janice was the type to sell old junk online just to buy new junk. What if she sells the laptop for pocket change? What if the new tenant tossed the shoebox into the trash? What if someone found that drive and, God help him, plugged it in? He couldn't call. ICE took his phone the day he was detained, said he'd get it back when he landed in Kingston. By then, it might be too late. He thought about Evelyn from church, kind, dependable, God-fearing. She might help. But Janice always had a jealous streak. Seeing Evelyn at the apartment would trigger drama Carlton didn't have time for. That left one man, James. James, who brought him to Bitcoin meetups, who made him believe in financial freedom, who once told him, "Carl, one day this digital gold's gonna be your escape rope." He needed James now more than ever. The boarding call echoed through the terminal. Flight 1123 to Kingston now boarding. The ICE officers gesture to him to get ready to board. They fast-track him onto the plane. Carlton's hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just deportation. This was a reset. If he could just get that thumb drive, just that one box, his story wouldn't end in disgrace. It would begin again. In May, Penn, Jamaica, his aunt reluctantly waited in her wooden shack, ready to welcome him home. He had no room, no job, and no phone. But if James came through, he'd have something more valuable than all of it: hope. And $530,000 worth of Bitcoin. He wanted to make a call to James and Evelyn before it was too late, but ICE took his phone. They told him he would get it back when he landed in Kingston, Jamaica.
As Carlton boarded the plane, miles away in New York, Janice cracked open the closet to find a dusty shoebox labeled old school stuff. She laughed. A bunch of junk. He kept everything. What a loser, she muttered, tossing the box onto the bed.
Then she saw it. A thumb drive. Silver. Plain. Unlabeled. She picked it up. Then
Janice's phone buzzed. Her bestie was calling with news about a rooftop party tonight in Soho. "Girl, I'm there," Janice laughed, tossing the small silver thumb drive onto the bed beside the shoebox. "I'll check that later," she thought to herself.
And just like that, $530,000 worth of Bitcoin sat, unnoticed, on a wrinkled bedsheet, thousands of miles away. Carlton's plane touched down in Kingston with a jolt that rattled his soul. He was handed over to the Jamaican authorities and processed like a name on a form, not a man who had lost his world. They returned his phone, but it didn't work. No service in this country. Just a black screen with memories. He desperately needed to make a call to James to save him from this life disaster. He waited outside the airport for his cousin to arrive and pick him up. 5 hours had passed, and it was getting dark. His cousin didn't show up. Carlton was exhausted, hungry, and all alone. He was beginning to get scared. What will happen to him? Would James make it in time? Would he be able to convince Janice to hand over Carlton's belongings? Would Janice discover Carlton's hidden fortune? Or would his second chance vanish by party-loving, drinking, reckless Janice? To be continued in Part 2.